Hello YouTube! Today I want to show you all my knives from the first on and my whole knife making progress which I had in a long time up to knives which I make today. I get a few requests. He wants me to show my very first knife. I thought could be a good idea. If you have any questions to a knife, just leave me a comment below and I'll try to answer that. So let's get started. All I can remember since I make knives, it's a very long time. I guess I started in about 2004, about 12 years ago, with knife making, and I guess this is one of my first knives ever made. The funny part is that it's a very good steel. It's an HSS metal working steel, so normally drill bits or thread cutters, lathe chisels, or different tools are made out of this steel. This was a saw blade. It had a hole here and a hole here, and I just rounded out this side, made a grip shape on this side, and rounded this side with an angle grinder. Always cooled it down carefully to not remove the hardness. The grinding of this knife was a lot of work because the blade is already hardened, or the saw blade was already hardened, and it's pretty hard, pretty tough material, about 56 to 58 Rockwells HRC. Yeah, just put a simple apple wood scales on here with some screws and wood nuts, press nuts in here. Very simple, very easy. Negative aspect about this knife, the holes are a little bit too big for the screws, just a millimeter bigger than the screws itself, and now if you hack or if you chop some wood with it, the handle itself slips around a little bit. But yeah, for the first knife I made, I guess it's okay. It's absolutely okay, and I had no experience in knife making, absolutely no experience. I just made it from scrap metal, as you would say. These old saw blades were laying around in the company I worked at, and yeah, used this knife quite a lot, chopped very much wood with it, so the blade is extremely durable, extremely sharp, and it holds the edge extremely good. So the blade steel itself is absolutely amazing. It's maybe just a bit too hard because you could break it if you bend it too much. It's very brittle steel in this case. I could temper it down to a blue color, but this knife I won't ruin in any case. It's, for me, it has great value because I got a lot of memories on this knife, and one of the first ever made, or it's the first I ever made. And to the sheath, it's just a simple wooden sheath. Put on some rubber here, the one I lost already, and just simple leather strap here with 4 screws adjusted, and just 2 wooden pieces and a bit of small wooden piece in between for the blade, and it doesn't hold the blade secure. It was just for keeping it safe, so it's not that sharp. And here's a little hook to bend it onto your leg, so it's not flopping around, and works pretty well. I just have to say I used it quite a lot, but now it's just for showing purposes, and yeah, I won't give it away in any case, never ever. And as you can see, the gaps everywhere. The wood itself dried out some more and got opened up. If I worked with it, always cleaned it, and never got any rust at all. Some very tiny spots, but those doesn't matter at all. When I made this knife, I had no knife making tools at all. I just had an angle grinder, normal drill, some drill bits, and normal screws, some woodworking tools, files, and rasps, some sandpaper, and that's it. And files are pretty useless on this steel because the files are already made out of HSS. Some files, not all, but good files. So most of the bevel, you can see, or you can say there's a bevel, is not already a bevel. I just made a rounded corner because the blade is pretty thin already, and I just tried to thin it out a little bit more and gave it a small bevel so it gets pretty sharp and chops pretty well. I chopped down trees about 20 centimeters in diameter with this thing, so pretty powerful. Okay, and the next knife I want to show you is almost the same. It's just slightly a recurve inside the blade. It's the same length, the same material, also saw blade before. Just the handle is made out of plastics, just simple cutting board. It's pretty big. It was not for me. A friend of mine made this for himself, but he didn't use it anymore and he gave it to me. The camouflage I made myself with an airbrush gun. Just tried out a little bit and I guess it worked out pretty nice. For the first time making anything with my airbrush. That was years and years ago. I guess it was 3 or 4 years after getting this knife. Just thought it would be real nice, give it some color. And it's very sharp as the other blade too, but I didn't use this because the color would just split off and it's just for show. Another small knife I want to show you is this. This is my second knife, or third knife, no, second knife I made. It's just a little karambit, and these hooks here are pretty useless. They're already dangerous, you can fight yourself, but I thought it looks cool. So in this time when I started making knives, I just wanted to make knives which looked cool, work out already. That was always the purpose of mine, but they had to look cool too. It's also a saw blade made out of HSS. Yeah, pretty sharp, pretty nasty little hook, but for working purposes or anything, pretty useless, I think, just to have it. Here, a very funny thing, my first folding knife I made, it was a rest piece of the same saw blade than my first knife. It was the only steel I had at this time, was the HSS saw blades. I had about 4 or 5 pieces of them and made nice projects, and these are the only I have anymore. Yeah, this is my first extreme easy and extreme cheap folding knife, but I have to say it worked out pretty well. I had it a long time and worked, and it's nasty. It's real nasty. It cuts very well. It's extreme sharp, but that's the steel at all. And as you can see here, I really made a bevel this time. I guess it was a nice bevel for, I had no idea in knife making, and I always wanted to make it symmetrical. It was always a very important point for me to make it symmetrical. I like symmetrical things. For the handle of this knife I used a hydraulic tube, which I cut open on one side, and then I laid in a 3mm steel plate and pushed it together with a vise. The rest I cut out after pushing it together, drilled a hole inside, and then fitted the blade in. And that's it. Here I pushed it a little more together so the blade gets stopped here and doesn't damage the tip when closing the knife. So it always stays sharp and it's covered. After a few attempts like this or this of making anything sharp, I thought, okay, maybe I give it a chance and try to go to a workshop, a knife making workshop. And I have to say, it was a very, very good idea. The first knife I made in the workshop, or at first I talked to the workshop owner and asked him about knife making. A little bit here, a little bit there, got some information, got some starting points, and I knew what I had to do. So I asked him if I can buy some steel and made myself some plans out of plastic and cardboard for a folding knife. And here it is. It's a very heavy folding knife, I have to say. That is because I want to make it extremely stable and durable, and I already had no ideas about what is a good knife and what is a bad knife, and what makes a knife good and what makes a knife bad. So this knife, what makes it bad? The hooks are pretty useless. This you can use to open bottles. It worked out, I had the right space. But in the end they're pretty useless. The handle itself is extreme thick and extreme heavy, as said before. It's pretty useless in this thickness, so I had 2mm Titan plates riveted on here, but they not make it lighter at all. Plans for the knife I made completely myself, and for the first time making a folding knife, or it's the second time making a folding knife if you see the other already, but for the first time making a real folding knife, I guess it's pretty nice. The scrimshaw is made by Lisi Woigenand from Austria. Very nice scrimshaws. Hope you can see it. The knife itself is extreme sharp because it's a very nice steel. It's a Böhler N690. Extreme nice steel. I now use quite a lot, and very good to work with, and extreme hard. It's a hardness of about 60 HRC, as most of the good blades I made. And the first knife made myself, coming next.